Welcome to the Total Acre Podcast. I'm your host, Chad Seabold. This podcast is all about helping growers unlock their potential. We aim to bring listeners agronomic insights, valuable educational interviews, real-world strategies that optimize yield and maximize ROI. This show is going to explore innovative practices, creative strategies, and breakthrough products with people that are shaping the industry, all through engaging and inspiring stories. Who better to learn from than the legendary world champion David Hula, Randy Dowdy, and Alex Harrell? Because in farming and in life, iron always sharpens iron. And the best way to grow or get better is to continually be learning, networking with peers, have access to industry leaders, and the tools, tips, and tricks, and overall quality of information. Knowledge is power. Tune in, hit play. Let's unlock your farm's potential together. Hey y'all, Chad Seabold here with Total Acre. Really excited about my guests today, Zach Carlson, John Parish with Redox Bio-Nutrients. These guys are doing something different. Guys, thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for the invite, Chad. It's always fun.
Yeah, thanks, Chad.
John, middle of summer, you guys are still irrigating. You guys are both from Nebraska. Yeah. Middle of summer, you guys are still pumping water, trying to get, finish off that crop. Love it. How are things looking out in Nebraska?
Good from my side where, weather kind of held out, didn't get the hail and that stuff. And I think we'll have a pretty common, pretty stellar yield across most of it. So
sandbagging out in Holdridge, Nebraska sounds like they've got a record yields out there for sure. Zach, I know you're out and around Lincoln. Things are looking pretty good. I know you got some weather here and there, but all in all, looking okay?
Yeah, this year has definitely been an anomaly. I think we expected it to be a dry year, and it turned out to be one of the wetter ones, especially the beginning of August, not alone the first 2 months before that. So we're getting close to records. We have chances of rain that happen every time. I think everybody's very excited about potential crop yields that are out there. There's some differing opinions in the marketplace. I think we've had our challenges with disease out there and also pollination. But I do think that we're going to have a much better yield than what they're calling for right now. So all in all, I think a really good growing season, knowing the challenges that we have, current and future.
Well, again, Mother Nature is going to throw stuff at us. And at the end of the day, it's just how you adapt and overcome. Sometimes we talk about it, right? We've been in some meetings together. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the face, right, Parish? I think that's an old Mike Tyson 1-2. Yeah. You guys are no stranger to Total Acre. You guys have been with Total Acre for now 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. Last year you had 15, 18 different trials that you were doing with Brian and Bryce. Had some really good results with, I think at the time you were doing kind of the programmatic approach. You were kind of doing a 3-product system. And this year, I'm kind of excited to talk about some of the things you did this year with the product you've been working on for the last decade, really, right? With RDXn.
Yeah, RDXn, 15 years in the making. I think 11 years has really been definite focus. But the first commercial year that we have released RDXn to the marketplace, couldn't be more excited about plant mode of action instead of soil mode of action, if you will. Being able to metabolize nitrogen and assimilate it into the plant and utilize it and optimize it. I think the tool is ripe for growers to be utilizing this, and especially in the commodity markets and also the input markets that we've been seeing so far.
Well, John, last year, I know you're the newest addition to Redox, probably a couple, 3 weeks old, but we've worked together in the past. You've done a lot of work with UNL and nitrogen management, which I really love. But I know, Zach, you're lying to me because last year we trialed RDXn through Total Acre, but it wasn't really officially named in the marketplace. We were excited then. This year, we've got 15 or 18 different trials out there with Total Acre members. I know Bryce has been really excited about what he's been seeing and hearing on the backside. When you look at, again, kind of what the company is all about, maybe give me some history on that too, because if you have not heard of Redox Bio-Nutrients out of Burley, Idaho, Zach, give me a quick rundown on where Redox is out of and what you're all about.
Yeah, so Redox Bio-Nutrients, located out of Burley, Idaho. It is a family-owned company, started about 32 years ago. Still with the same family, coming up with the second generation right now with Colton and Cody Moon. Privately held. We are really a company based upon two different things. amongst others, is tell the truth and provide solutions to growers based upon the challenges they have through consultative means. So we are not going to be someone that comes in and says, these are the products that you need and walk away. We want to know about your operation. We really, truly want to learn and consult through, and there may be opportunities and there may not be. But I think based upon what Darren has taught us to do is tell the truth, do the right thing for the grower, because that's exactly where he was. He was a grower in a tough time. He had to find solutions for himself, and now we want to present that into the Midwest and all the way across the world, to be honest with you.
I love it. I had a chance to spend some time with you guys last week at the Expert Farm there in Southwest Iowa. John, I know you're no stranger to getting out, picking corn, but this is in Iowa now, not Nebraska. You're out there in the mosquito-ridden fields. Things look a lot different than what maybe you expected. Sound like.
Yeah, it did. I mean, the weather that came through, kind of laid it over and that type of stuff, but it looked like everything was kind of hanging on yet. Ears were filled out and still doing well for the condition it was in, which was surprising. And even at the population it was at, man, it filled out to the tip, and I think they're gonna have some pretty good stuff there, Zach.
That was pretty cool too. I mean, not cool in terms of what you received for weather. We were just talking about favorable Mother Nature, and that was kind of unfavorable. I think, did you call it a mini derecho that came through? It was 115, 120 mile an hour winds.
It was like a hurricane had hit. Yeah, there was no tornadoes, there was no hail, there was no nothing. This was straight line winds all the way across it. But I'm just as John said, I'm really impressed with the resiliency of a corn crop that late in the season. I'm glad it hit later in the season when kernel fill actually is happening, because early on it would have been a lot worse, especially during that really susceptible time when it doesn't have those strong cell walls.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to kind of double click back on what you were talking about with Darren and the ownership, kind of investing in opportunities to be able to showcase products, but certainly technology and then educating the market. I know that's what the Expert Farm was kind of built for. You guys were on the stage talking quite a bit about not just technology inside of products, but guess what? Basic agronomy. And then I call it the shallow end, and then the 6 foot, and then deep end. I got to tell you guys, when I was up there, I could play in the shallow end quite a bit, but you guys really are fairly technical, which I love. A lot of those questions that were coming in were right up David Hula's alley.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things about Redox is that they require us to know about that deep end. But we want to make the growers feel comfortable about why we do things and where we can help with those opportunities, so that we're not just another company that has solutions for everything that's out there. We want to prove, talk about, consult, and really make the growers feel comfortable about what our solutions can be based upon sound science. And that's where Darren and John Kelly both come from.
Well, speaking of conversations and what growers are talking about right now, there's some, it's always easy to talk about commodity prices, right? It's things that affect us that we can't control. Guys that are great marketers even right now are still talking about, pricing. But the kind of the buzz that we're hearing right now in the marketplace is they're already looking at 26 crop. And we're hearing some wild prices on nitrogen. And John, I know you shared some information with me on some of the pricing, whether it's NH3 urea or some of the other nitrogen products, 32. What are you hearing out there, John?
I think for the most part, prices on fertilizer inputs are going to stay high. In hydrous,
give me an example of high. How high? What are you seeing in Nebraska?
We're seeing that 70 cents or better on most of your nitrogen sources. Anhydrous is the exception. It's staying relatively cheap, under that 50-cent mark right now. I mean, there's rumblings though that your UAN is going to be hard to get a hold of. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that climb. You talk about phosphorus. There's some rumblings there that that's going to keep going up as well. And I think what I was looking at was around that 95 cents a pound of
I've seen that.
So yeah. So like I said, I think it's going to be another year where guys are going to be looking at how can I be the most efficient that I can be with the prices we're at. I mentioned anhydrous a little bit. There's a few guys yet or areas that are able to handle that, but it's not commonly used, I would say, across everything right now. So everybody's going to be looking at those higher prices on pretty much everything. So
Yeah, I was hearing 460 a ton. That 70 cents is about what I've kind of been hearing across the board. I've heard some 490s and there's some wild prices. And I think that's the unfortunate thing with down commodity prices. Nobody wants to be hearing this again and again and again, right, in the market. But the reason I wanted to have you guys on and talk through this is because of some of the things you guys have in terms of solutions. I know you talk about education first and then products come, but a lot of guys right now are locking in fall anhydrous. They're locking in their nutrient, their fertility plans. John, I think we sat down for, a Coke off to the side, sitting there behind the combine, and we were talking. You thought somewhere between 20 and 30% have already locked in that fertility program, at least in your area.
Yeah. I mean, as I was leaving, that field day, I actually got my prices that day, and it wouldn't be a stretch to say I would be interested in locking in some of that right now. So I would say, 20%, 30%. I think we'll be climbing as we get into harvest on getting prices locked in for fertilizer. So
Which is damn wild, right? For as high as everything is, that's, I think I heard somebody say that week too, we're one rocket away. Everybody knows where most of that comes from. And if if that's sourcing inland, right now, all of a sudden it's probably a bad thing to think about, but one rocket away from, skyrocketing prices. So really guys are kind of getting scared into probably locking in these things. But Zach, this is why, again, when we were chatting it up, having an opportunity to use a product that can help optimize nitrogen, right? Or replace nitrogen. We're not talking about biologicals, right? But with RDXn, talk to me about, I know, I'm gonna butcher some of this, but you have some different technology, including redox active molecules inside of these, and I want to get to that. But really, the product that is called RDXn.
Yep.
We've been playing with that inside of Total Acre the last 2 years, and have really seen different opportunities to optimize quality or build yield. And we've seen very consistent results, and we can talk about what that looks like. But give me a little bit of background on RDXn.
Yeah, so I apologize if I get really, really animated and really excited about RDXn, but it's something that is definitely new to the marketplace. You hit on a big time. It is not a biological. A lot of the end products, P products, we're dealing with a soil-based additive, as in a nutrient, and we expect that to get into the plants. We are thinking that is going to be 100% into the plant. It is absolutely not. The University of Illinois has done multiple replications in years, proving that on average, 33% of each unit is getting into that plant. So when we're taking a product like RDXn, and I hit it on earlier, we are plant-based. We are trying to help metabolize the nitrogen that gets into that plant so that it can increase its efficiency, so that we're not having to deal with so much N units into the soil and getting those into the plant. So when we think about this, if we can increase that 33% to say 50% or 60%, we are then having to put less risk out earlier. So you hit on it, John, very perfectly. 20 to 30% of guys are already starting to lock in their nitrogen. I don't see that as a problem. What I do see as a problem is trying to make sure that we don't put too much risk into an inefficient product. So the reason why we've been studying RDXn for 11 years and that we took our time with it is because the results that we were seeing with it were unbelievable. Because the industry has been talking about N in the soil, fixing nitrogen, moving a lot of that through the system. Well, that's all well and good, but until you deal with the plant and you deal with how it assimilates and metabolizes and optimizes nitrogen, it's an incomplete equation. So
Can I interrupt you there for a second? Because I want to, you had said 33%. So if I'm applying, let me just do my simple Iowa math, right? 200, if I'm on 200 bushel corn, dry land corn,
Yep.
and let's say I'm going to say Iowa State, John. I won't pick on Nebraska. That 1-to-1, right? My nutrient use efficiency is what some talk about. If I'm applying 1 pound of nitrogen for every bushel, right? So we're looking in that 200 units. 33% of that is found in the plant. So it's being consumed by so whatever 33% times 100, I could do that math. 33 pounds of nitrogen.
Roughly about 67 pounds.
60, yeah. So 67 pounds of that is being what? Denitrification. It's the soil's burnt that off. What's happening to, yeah.
Yeah, 67 pounds is actually getting into the plant. Where's the rest of it go? So the efficiency is at 33%. So you're at 67 pounds into that plant. A lot of it's being leached, especially this year where a lot of rain happens.
So Zach, let me double click on this, right? So 200 bushel corn.
Yep.
If my NUE score is sitting somewhere around, let's just say 0.7, right?
Okay.
0.7. If I'm going to do the math, that's 140 pounds of N, if I'm not mistaken. That's my
Yep.
Iowa math, John. So at 140 pounds of N, if 33% efficient, what's found inside the plant, how many units of N is that? 47, 48 pounds?
47, 48 pounds. Yep.
That's all that the plant is able to metabolize. And what happens to the rest of that?
Denitrification, leaching is a big factor of that. We can go through every one of those, and everything is a pull away from the efficiencies. So,
and that's what you're saying. If we can be even 10 or 12 or 15% more efficient than that 33%, that's everything.
Absolutely. If we can put less into the system, as in the soil, but we can be more efficient in getting it into the plant, then that brings that 33% up, no matter what nitrogen source that you're using.
Sure.
That is what we are trying to make more efficient inside that system, or we call it N optimization. The metabolism is the missing equation in all of this. It's not, NUE is great to go by, but at the end of the day, what uses that N? It's the plant. Then we go down the path of plant charge balance where N units, or N, the nitrogen N, is 80% of the inefficient plant charge balance. It causes inefficiencies in that plant because it's so easily assimilated.
So Zach, I love it. 33% efficient. That makes sense to me, right? I can kind of get that math in my head. But now you brought up charge, right? Or charge per acre. So you're saying not pounds per acre, you're saying charge per acre. But if we start looking at the amount of nitrogen we're using and the efficiency's not there and it's going away, we can increase efficiency by applying a product like RDXn. How does that work?
It works because we're using a very strong plant botanical, 3 of them to be honest. And when we deal with plant charge balance, or the charges of whatever nutrient that we're doing, that plant wants to see 50-50. Well, the more nutrients that we get into that plant, as in N or ammonium or nitrate, whichever way, it's going to take up nitrate and it's going to turn it in the ammonium form to be able to use it. Well, those have differing charges. If we are flooding the system knowing that it wants 50-50 charge balance, it has to deal with that. It either has to use it, or it has to just secrete down and back into the soil and grab more carbon. It then has to charge that plant up, which is an energy suck or usage that goes up with it. Knowing that, we are trying to, any kind of energy resources that a plant has to use, it then is caused a stress. That is a stress on the plant. That plant cannot move. So the better that we can assimilate nitrogen, the better that we can metabolize them, the less energy that plant is having to use to bring up potassium, calcium, magnesium, whatever that it's calling for, so that it can de-stress itself and have better abiotic stress defenses. That's why we hit on nitrogen so importantly. So important.
Can I bring this down into terms that I can understand? Because when I heard Darren talk last week at the Expert Farm, he was talking about charge, and he was talking about nitrogen being a negative charge, right? And the majority of the charge that's in a plant, I think you said 80%, is from nitrogen, and most of that charge is negative. If we get out of balance, if we're not in that 50-50, now all of a sudden you have too much nitrogen being stored in the plant, causing some sort of charge imbalance.
Yep.
And what I think you're saying then too is if you're imbalanced, that is actually, that energy is being stored and causing stress instead of going to yield production.
Yes.
And so when I think about that, like plant charge balance could be one of the most important things that influences yield. When you think about like yield potential or quality, John, is that jiving with what you guys are doing?
Yeah, that's what I'm understanding. That's what I'm seeing. So yeah, balancing those plants and making them more efficient, and diverting that energy from storage to yield. So
talk about what is it that allows you to do that? I know that you've had products around for the last 30 some odd years, but I know we had talked a little bit about some of the technology, and I know it's not a Chevy, it's not a Ford, it's a Ram, right? So Ram technology. Give me that acronym.
Yeah, so RAM technology is short for redox active molecules. It is a scientific fact that there are redox active molecules out there that we could be utilizing as biostimulants. Those biostimulants, or RAM technology, is the ability for a molecule or a compound to give or receive a charge. It then can help balance that plant to make sure that it doesn't have an excess of energy expenditures to bring itself back into that 50-50 charge balance. So every redox product has RAM technology into it because maintaining plant charge balance is the one thing that's holding us back from greatness.
I want to bring it down to where I can understand it, because if you look at balance, I could see it, right? Like it's easy, balance, 50-50, right? But if I'm in a situation and I don't know the charge of what my situation is, right? Whatever program I'm using on my field, might go back to my 200 bushel dry land fields. I have a program put in play. I have no way to measure whether or not I'm in balance, right? It's called homeostasis, right? I get that. I understand that. But what you're saying to me is inside of there's technology inside the jug where you don't actually go measure the balance or the charge imbalance. You're saying that the RAM technology allows, I think I wrote it down right, to be able to take on or give charge to be able to bring that plant within balance. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
correct.
Amazing. And so what you're seeing then there is that energy then can be redirected to production versus stress mitigation. And why is that important? Healthier
Because
plant.
because every stress that happens once you open that bag of corn is reducing yields that can be there. I think in the agricultural industry, we need to stop talking about yield increases and start dealing with a reduction of yield losses. We are protecting it as much as possible.
Zach, listen, dude, if you take a bag of corn, I don't care what name it's got on the bag. If you were David, 623 bushel corn, we know it's going to say Pioneer on there, right? But when you ask David and you say, hey, what's the yield opportunity? What's the yield potential for a bag of corn? He's not going to tell you. He'll say somewhere 8,000-9,000 bushels. But out of the gate, as soon as you put it in the ground, we're already dealing with stress that's going to actually mitigate yield gain, correct?
Yes. Every stress that a plant will run into through the season reduces yield. So
Sure.
instead of trying to talk about increasing yield, we need to now start thinking about how can we reduce the losses that we have out there. Because weather stresses it, that's probably the number one factor. Nutrient stresses, disease stresses, insect stresses, anything along those lines is all a reduction across, call it 1,000 bushels when you open that bag. Heck, even just opening the bag and having the wrong situation when you put it into the field or into that planter, that's reducing yield by itself. How long it stays in the field, how long it sits there, does it germinate quickly? We always talk about even emergence and how quickly we can get it out of the ground. It's all a stress that's there. But the number one thing that we're hitting on is nutrient stresses inside that plant. How can we reduce the energy expenditures that it's needing to get back into balance?
I love it. And I think there's another Husker football joke in there somewhere too that talks about it. Start every season, right?
There always is.
National championship, but then there's things along the way that are going to hit, like Iowa Hawkeyes football, right? Or others. But John, when you think about that, right? Yield potential. I love talking yield potential. We all do as producers, but limiting factors. And I hear people talk about balance a lot too, but not plant charge balance. What we talk about in terms of like mineral nutrition, you'll hear about ratio balance, but you don't hear about plant charge balance. And when I started to hear about it, it was Darren Moon and Redox, I believe, are the only ones that are talking about plant charge balance. Makes total sense. If the plant's not healthy, it's likely that it's out of balance, probably in a situation where there's too much nitrogen in the vacuoles stored, causing damage. And again, I stop me if I'm wrong, but if that plant then can maneuver that energy from going to correct that stress, we can put that energy into production. And so now we can optimize yield. Is that summary?
Yeah.
Is that farmer grade summary, John?
That's good enough. Yeah, that worked.
For me, I'm a visual guy, right, John? So if you can make that really simple like that, if I had a whiteboard, it'd be awesome. But But Zach, John, that to me is, I get, as a producer, weather, right? Nutrient deficiencies. We see all those limiting factors. I would assume, though, if we're in balance, we're likely in a situation where we have a healthier plant. Now, do we get into a situation where we don't need other applications of, say, an insecticide or, potential? Is that kind of the goal? Or do you start to see some of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I guess from my experience, that would be part of it, where we can have healthier plants utilizing nutrients or fertilizers more efficiently and essentially reducing our cost, right?
The plant becomes more resilient too, right? I would assume if you're not in a situation. Somebody gave me, John, I think it was actually John Kelly, one of the agronomists from out of Idaho, that was talking about apples and nitrogen coming into an apple. They have, those apple trees have to take in nitrogen, and when they do, if they take in too much, it's a soft apple, so it's damaging tissues. Same thing in a corn plant, I would assume. It's maybe not damaging the kernels themselves, but I imagine tip back, right? So instead of filling out, we've got the number of kernels around and we've got the length, but now all of a sudden we're starting to tip back late season. It's not because we're out of gas. It could be because we're out of balance.
Yep, correct.
All right. I like it. So let's go back to where we started on some of the industry news of pricing, right? Because to me, that's where the rubber meets the road. And the technology's been around. We love what we're seeing within Total Acre. Again, this is now the second year we've seen some amazing results. When we talk yield potential, we've seen some really cool stuff with packing off nitrogen. And I'm not saying you have to reduce, right? But at the end of the day, we've done stuff where I'm saying internally with Total Acre, where we've asked folks to reduce nitrogen, whether it's 25 pounds or a certain percent, and we're able to maintain yields and actually see some very good healthy and heavier density in kernel size and quality. So there's two things that we're starting to see. But John, if you go back to pricing on nitrogen, so if we know as producers, and this is probably going to be hard for me to admit as a producer, if we know we're over applying or we're very inefficient with applying nitrogen, we're causing damage without knowing it potentially. We're causing the stress. Is that what we're saying? Like if there is that imbalance?
Yeah, correct.
So if we're over applying it and nitrogen's already out of bounds pricing wise, what are you suggesting here, Job?
I mean, what we're looking at with RDXn is just backing off, 25%. That's the lowest use rate that we're going to recommend there at 16 ounces or about a pint an acre. So back off 25% of your total nitrogen, right? So for example, at that 70 cents per pound of nitrogen, say you apply in that 200 pound range, you're backing off 50 pounds with the way the prices are working out, nitrogen and the cost of RDXn, that's saving a guy around $23 an acre. Maintain yield potential of increasing, right? Like we could end up seeing better efficiencies and all that. So there's a wide range we could go over there, but that could be quite a bit of savings for some guys.
I'm working the math with, again, my Iowa math here, and that definitely seems to make sense. 50 pounds at 70 cents, $35, right? Ish.
Yep.
And if you look at that, I go back to what Zach said there too. That makes sense to me too. When you start looking at potential to gain yield by eliminating stress, right? Versus, and I think that's a different way.
Yield. It's
there you go.
Yield. It's protecting yield based upon reducing stress.
Okay. Not a lot of people talking about that, right? In terms of, sure, fungicide or some of the things late season, but what you're talking about is if you can apply RDXn up front in season with nitrogen all season long, that nitrogen is utilized better all season long because it keeps that plant within balance.
Yeah,
and that's that RAM technology, correct?
Yeah, and I think we need to double click on what John just said. We are talking about percentage of reduction, not pounds of reduction. There's no one else on the marketplace that is talking this way. And I think John was also probably dipping his toe not as far as we probably could or feel comfortable with. We're even talking about 50% of reduction based upon RDXn. That's how confident we are because we're plant-based instead of a nutrient-based or mineral-based inside soils. So I love how John was talking about 25%. I think that's a good step in the right direction. But here at Redox, we are comfortable with up to 50% reduction. So I just wanted to double click on that one real quick.
I'm gonna say somebody choked on their coffee right there when you say 50% reduction, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I guess I'll go back to what I know, or I've listened to Darren a few different times talk to Commodity Classic, and if anybody listening to this has not listened to Darren Moon talk, who is the founder of Redox Bio-Nutrients, listen to him. Again, he's been around for a little while. He's certainly knows his stuff. If you look at it too, when you started out of the gate, kind of the company, kind of the motto, right? The foundation of the business: tell the truth,
Mm-hmm.
find the best people. Everything else kind of falls into place. Um, I wouldn't imagine a guy would want to risk a company that he's had for 32 years for a product that gets a few extra sales, right? So I love that. John, go back to that for me again. Just give me some of that math, because again, if I'm a 200 bushel dryland guy and I want to reduce my 1-to-1, and if I can pull back 25%, not units,
Yep.
all of a sudden that's 50 units of nitrogen at 70 cents a pound. Now all of a sudden, or 70 cents a unit. Now all of a sudden, we're starting to see a $35 savings. What's farm gate cost on RDXn? I mean, are you revealing that? $12-13 is what I have on my sheet here from.
Yeah, that's where it was for last season. At least that's the numbers I have. So right around.
And that's
there.
a pint.
That's for pint, 16 ounces an acre. So
I know that's what we had out in the 18 trials. With our Total Acre members, there's a couple different things that we've seen. I've seen some videos out there with Jake Groves up in Michigan. It's definitely, we've seen some really interesting root development early on some of that. We've also seen kernel round and length of ear being established early, and now I guess what we're really looking at in these trials is density. Right? Are we going to be able to fill before we dent? Can we get a heavier kernel? And it's right now everything looks really promising, Zach and John. It's that technology that, again, that has been around, sounds like, for a long time, but now just coming into the Midwest. Has this been technology that's been used in specialty crops then, and again, just coming into corn, soybeans?
Yeah, so the Midwest is really trying to be the leader of the charge on this one. No pun intended, but pun intended on that one. Mostly because we're the biggest end users across most of the
Oh, I just
majority
see.
of acres.
I see where you're going. Leader in charge. I got you. Charge balance.
See,
Took
I
me a
can
second.
It's N for knowledge for Nebraska, just so you know. So
Witty,
yes,
witty Zach Carlson. I love it.
witty banter. So yes, we are utilizing this in also our specialty markets, which it's smaller acreage, but they also have more applications of smaller amounts because they're trying to balance. It's a very delicate balance when you come to specialty crops. Here in majority of row crops, we're very used to our systematic approach. There's only so many times that we can do it. We have learned from the specialty markets that we need to change on our row crop side. We need to become more spoon-fed on what we do. That also creates less stress because we don't have the peaks and the valleys that happen with plant charge balance.
Well, the reason I asked that too, and John, maybe you can kind of jump into this one too, but when I heard, you in the markets that you play, right, in the specialty world, then when you come into the Midwest, I know, number one, there has to be a high quality product because there's higher expectations in specialty. And the fact that now, you got a price point where you can bring some of that technology into a row crop situation, pretty cool. But I know for sure when you start talking about the proprietary or some of the things that you're doing uniquely in your production process, if Brian Maddox was on here with me, he gets so geeked out about your 9001, your ISO 9001, which is just really, I know it's about production quality, right? Which in terms of what's in that jug is in that jug next year or the next gallon or the next gallon, right? It's consistency. And that's, in our world of ag, it has to be very consistent. So maybe just high level, talk about some of the difference in that 9001 in your manufacturing process.
And John, I think one thing when we were talking, and it wasn't too long ago, about how the consistency of, say, normal synthetic fertilizer is different from batch to batch. Maybe that is something that you need to talk about, and then we can go into kind of the 9001, why we do what we do. But I give your example that we talked about on the color of fertilizer that we're getting.
Yep. No, I had a conversation with Zach, and this actually stems from farmer interactions. But when you get a tank, say 1034-0, starting out your season, and you go back and get that refilled, or somebody delivers something and that color change, do you think that's the same product? Do you think that's the same quality? I honestly challenge guys to have those analyzed. If you've got questions and are curious about it, I mean, have somebody take a look at it, because when we start looking at other products and stuff like this, and we say, it's that product not working, what if it's your fertilizer not being consistent? So this, what were we saying again? ISO 9000.
ISO 9001. Yep.
So this ISO 9001, having that standard and having that quality and just that ability to remake the same product over and over again is phenomenal. Same colors, same texture, all that. Like that's huge when you start talking about ag products and what's coming across the farm at this current state and time.
John, and I love your background too, because as a producer yourself, right, and growing up on a family farm, you understand, like I don't care what the product is. At the end of the day, we had it one year and it worked great, but for sure you had a good product in there. Second year, maybe not so well, or maybe the third year, that consistency is what we look for, right, and efficacy and year over year. But I agree, and I think I would say that within Total Acre, I don't run the trials. Brian and Bryce do all of that, but I would assume we get really high quality product every time, because we want product to be able to work when manufacturers are sending that to us. But when you're batching out hundreds of thousands of gallons of stuff, I get, right, that consistency is going to be huge. So I know low use rates. I know you talked about low use rates earlier, but being able to be consistent year over year, gallon over gallon. Mm-hmm. It's some of the production in-house there's a manufacturing process that you guys are pretty keen on.
Yeah, some of our products actually take up to 2 weeks to make, because we're not just taking raw product and then reformulating them and putting them in a jug. We might be taking specific compounds out of a specific process, saving those for later, then putting those into a product for a specific need. So the reason why we're ISO 9001 is because we believe in quality. We believe that it doesn't take that much quantity to get what we needed done. It's less about pounds of the acre, and it's more about parts in a million and availability inside that plant, because when we look at the top 6 inches of soil, it only takes about 10 pounds of actual nutrients to grow a crop. We don't need large amounts out there anymore. We have not seen yield increases based upon increasing pounds to the acre. We need to energize that plant to actually maintain plant charge balance. And the key factor to this is RAM technology, redox active molecules. There's a reason why the company is called Redox. It's not because Darren just came up with a random name. Search it, research it. Do the back legwork outside of redox. It's actually a scientific term, redox potential. That's what we're trying to do at Redox, is create high quality at low quantities to get this crop into secondary metabolic pathways.
I love it. And that's something that maybe for another podcast, but I definitely want to dig deeper into that secondary metabolic pathway. So when you look at limiting factors on kind of what we do with NPK, I think we'll probably hit that as an industry. I think most people will agree with that. Whether it's a biological or a biostimulant, folks are always interested in learning more. And I think, again, just what you guys are doing is a bit different. So I love the fact you're able to kind of have that education first approach. It means a lot to a producer to be able to understand it's more than the product. It's about what's happening in that plant in this case. And then how do we really get to max yield potential or quality potential? I did see something, there was a slide or two maybe on a company that's out in the marketplace that we work with. It's called Crop Diagnostics. Mm-hmm. Crop Diagnostics. I know that they're actively in the marketplace doing some really cool stuff with RNA analysis. I gotta put the thing out there that Total Acre does have the exclusivity in corn, doing some of the work with them, which is really nice for our producers.
Yep.
But when you look at that, I know one of the slides that I had seen is when you take a traditional in-season. John, I'm going to come back to you in just a minute on when's the best time to apply nitrogen with RDXn. But, specifically that slide basically looked at when somebody took a traditional application of 32 in season and made that application, when did we start to see tissue affected by that nitrogen or that nitrogen application versus when did that crop diagnostics RNA analysis see it? Was completely different, right? So now all of a sudden when we start looking at technology that can really depict when and where nitrogen is being utilized by the plant, it's pretty sweet. John, if you're going to replace 25%, do you like it up front? Do you like it in season? What's the best type of nitrogen to replace when you're starting to look at RDXn? And like my case specifically, I'm fall anhydrous only, right? When would you like me to be able to put that application in?
Well, ideal would be moving your nitrogen application in season, man. But
well, we inject in our pivot, right? So we're putting.
Yep. So what we're going to use RDXn or where we are is we need to get it into the soil, right? So we're going to try to go with those passes that are applying nitrogen either to or in the soil. So whether you got a starter system or, say a side dress or a wide drop, something like that, we're going to target that. We aren't going to target the anhydrous because very few guys have a way to get a liquid product on with anhydrous. And again, the plants aren't growing then at that time, most cases. So I would say, early application of RDXn with the starter or early, side dress. If you want to cut out of, say, that early side dress or starting to get into that chemigation, we can maybe pull that out depending on what stuff's looking like.
Look at you guys. I know out in pivot country, you guys are injecting everything, right? So,
That's
but
right.
it can be ran through a pivot for the guys that are irrigators.
Zach, can you clarify that for me?
It absolutely can, and it has been. So we're able to get over more acres with less amounts of nitrogen by utilizing RDXn. So if you think about optimizing that nitrogen, instead of putting on 20 pounds at that time, you're putting on 10 and you're putting RDXn on. So it's really plant charging or it's plant priming every time. We're optimizing the nitrogen that's there. We're multiplying it. So it doesn't take as much to do, which in this day and age, especially going into 2026, we're going to be able to have a hell of a cost savings, especially at 70 to possibly 80 cents per unit of nitrogen.
So take the guy that's out there. I like that Holder, Jerry, that you're at, that little triangle, right? You got a pretty cool little spot in the Central Valley, right? It's called.
Yeah.
In that area, you've got thousands of pivots, and everybody's irrigating from every corner to every creek, right? And I suppose guys are really putting a lot of liquid. They're taking it from field to field to field, and they're putting into what tankers to truck. You're putting 1,000 gallons. You're moving a lot of material. So if a guy could get into a situation where you're taking in-season nitrogen out at 25%, 50%, and pulling out that pass, now all of a sudden you're not moving as much product too. So not only just the cost of the product, just the logistics of it seems to me like it would make a lot of sense. No pun intended, Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's it.
That could be huge, Chad. You're right. Just reducing that labor and the amount of equipment guys need. Interesting enough, had that conversation this morning. And they said, well, we don't need to buy all them tanks we just bought. So.
Well, it's in this day and age, right? We need to get creative, and I love the fact that producers are not forced into it, right? But I love the fact that they're having conversations. My only hope is, and that's why I wanted to get this podcast out for growers that are feeling like their backs against the wall. This actually is an opportunity to be able to look and explore what you guys are doing. And again, I think from an education standpoint, you guys are doing a wonderful job of being able to get a lot of stuff out in the marketplace. When you look at how to get access to information, Zach, YouTube, where can I find stuff?
Anywhere you could find your marketing, we are located on that. If you want more information about a product by product or look at what the team, who to reach out with the team, redoxgrows.com. That is a great, useful resource to research. It's got great technical podcasts. It has all of the information on the background. Please reach out to us, have a conversation, send us an email, a LinkedIn message, a Facebook message. However, we are open to have conversations with anybody and everybody. It might not be that you're a corn or soybean grower. You might be doing hay. You might be doing alfalfa, maybe potatoes. It does not matter to us. We know and are really interested in talking about crops and what your challenges are. So that's the best way to reach us.
I know you're going to be out at Farm Progress next week, so I guess I suppose you're going to be out there running around the countryside, making sure that you go out and watch the combines run. One other thing I want to hit on, just because I thought it was pretty cool. You guys had a tool. I picked up a poker chip that said Cipher on it.
Yep.
It didn't have anything to do with RDXn, but it was an educational piece that I thought was really cool. I actually went and signed up and got one of the Cypher analysis tool.
Yeah.
Tell a little bit about Cypher real quick.
Yeah, so Cypher is a soil analysis tool that is based on some analytics on the backside that Redox has developed. What we do is we ask our growers and we supply them with the test that they can send in, but they're going out to take a composite sample of their, say, 160 acre field. They're going to take 8 to 10 cores that are out there 6 inches down. It doesn't take very long to do this. Put that in one bag. We send them the sheet to send into our lab that we've contracted with. And what Cypher reports or Cypher soil tests is actually a soluble paste extraction. It's been around for 30 years. What it does is it takes deionized water under vacuum and it pulls out the nutrients that are available. So most growers are used to normal soil tests where it's a Malic 3, Braze, whatever. They're using very strong acids to pull everything off that soil and show what's present. So what a Cypher report does is show you what is present on the left of the column and what is available on the right for what a crop can see and the lowest energy resources that it needs to pull that nutrient up. Now we know exactly what.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop you right there because this sounds cool. I signed up for it. I'm going to put you on the spot here, right? Yeah. I'm going to put a picture of your coin at the end of this podcast. Yeah. If they take a picture of the QR code you're paying for the Cypher analysis, is that a good way for a grower to get a hold of you?
We absolutely are. It'll go into our system.
Right.
We'll be able to send you something exactly right in an email or mail and the form. You send the bag into our lab. We will get the report and we will have a consultation based upon that. That is what we are wanting to do on the marketplace. Before it's great as a conversation starter. Where do we need to start? We need to start from where our soils are at because the crop is in the soil. Then we can start dealing with what are your challenges? Because we're going to list opportunities based upon what we see in the soil. So we're not a soil testing company. That's not what we're trying to do. But until we have diagnostics on your farm that you can see and you can really have a conversation around, that is where we start.
Well, and that's what I love, John, is it's an education first company and what you guys are doing. I've had a chance to be around you a couple different times in my career, and I know it's more than just selling with you. And in terms of the QR, how do I make sure I don't get Zach, but I get you? Just kidding. I'm kidding. But guys, I appreciate you both coming in here. I do wish Husker Nation good luck on the football field here this season. You guys are due. That's all I'm going to say. I'll stop. You guys are due, right? You're not going to beat Iowa this year. Thanks for coming on, you guys.
On that one.
See, I can't get the last word. The last word. Thanks, you guys, for coming on. It's been really fun. Listen, have a great fall. Thanks for coming on Total Acre Podcast.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate the opportunity.